Hello folks, my name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? My peoples, where you at? So right now we're going to talk a little bit about Donald Trump because as I'm sure you've all heard, he's basically gotten away with not being held accountable yet again. So what's going on here? Well, if you haven't been living under a rock, you've probably heard that Donald Trump lost a civil case in New York. This was a court case that had to do with him and the Trump organization essentially defrauding investors. What were they doing? Well, they were overvaluing their property when it came to taking out loans so that they would get basically more money when they didn't deserve it. There's another part to this story where they were undervaluing their property, having to do with paying taxes. Of course, they got away with that part scot-free because the Attorney General in New York, Alvin James, didn't want to pull the trigger on that for reasons which are understandable, but still, please keep in mind Donald Trump should be in prison for this shit, and he's not. He's just basically paying a fine, which is still bullshit, but whatever. So the DA, Letitia James, raked his ass over the coals, and a judgment was entered in the amount of $454 million, which, if I believe it was a little bit less, but with all of the interest piled up, it comes out to $454 million. That is a shitload of money any way you look at it, but then again, Donald Trump is supposed to be super rich, isn't he? He's supposed to be a billionaire. Isn't that what he said? Isn't that what he claims all the time, that he's super duper rich and he's worth $10 billion or some shit like that? So $454 million should just be like not very much to him. He should be able to afford that, right? Apparently he can't. Apparently he doesn't have $454 million. What a surprise. And has basically spent the last 30 days going to every single bond company under the sun trying to get a bond put up in that amount. What would that mean? That means it's a bond that temporarily goes up and satisfies the requirements so that he can appeal the decision. That's what he's trying to do. And he can't even get anybody to reimburse him there. So today was the day. Today was the day that it was supposed to come due, and if he wasn't able to pay it, then they were going to start seizing his buildings. And at the very last second, as of 11 o'clock this morning, I think it was like 11:15 this morning, New York time, the appeals court reduced his bond just out of the blue and completely did him a solid for no good reason at all, because he couldn't afford it. It's kind of bullshit. I've got an article here. Let's check it out. This is from The Hill. Appeals court hands Trump victory, allows smaller bond in New York fraud case. A New York appeals court on Monday temporarily stopped the clock on the looming enforcement of a multi-million-dollar judgment against former President Trump and his company over deceitful business practices. In a terse order, a 5-judge state appeals court panel said it would cause the enforcement of the $464 million judgment against Trump, the Trump organization, and top executives with interest if they post a $175 million bond within 10 days. Basically, they cut it more than half. They basically took his fine. That's the fine, $464 million. That's the fine that was judged against him because his company was ripping people off. And they just said, yeah, here's half of it. If you could put up half of it, that's okay. Now, keep in mind, this means that he still has to pay the $464 million, but he's just putting up a bond which satisfies that requirement. Basically saying, here's the bond, I'm going to go appeal it now. And if he loses the appeal, he still has to pay $464 million, but who knows? The appeal could go through. They could reduce it down even further. So who knows what's going to happen. Let's read a little bit more. The pause comes after Trump's lawyers admitted last week that despite diligent efforts, it would be impossible for the former president to secure a full appeals bond due to lack of cash on hand. Trump wrote Friday on Truth Social that he has nearly $500 million in cash, and he told state lawyers last year in depositions he had substantially in excess of $400 million in cash. Okay, well then where the hell's the goddamn money? You know, if you're saying you have all this money, then why don't you just shut the fuck up and put your money where your mouth is? But Trump isn't doing that. He's going around trying to get a bond. Is it because he doesn't actually have the money? Or is it because he wants to spend other people's money? I mean, I don't really understand. Let's read a little bit more here. Okay, this just goes through the history. Last week he asked lawyers, his lawyers asked the court to accept a $100 million bond, and they turned him down. The appeals court order Monday also paused the enforcement of other penalties, including those barring Trump and top executives from serving in top leadership positions in New York businesses for several years. So you see that? It's not just that they cut the bond in half. They also got rid of the other punishments that were attached to that judgment. And what was part of that judgment? That Trump wasn't allowed to serve as the head of his business for 3 years. They basically just got rid of the judgment, essentially. And the only thing that's left is that, okay, now there's an independent monitor that has to oversee his business dealings. Oh, gee, thanks. A Trump spokesperson in the Trump attorney's office noted in a statement that the $464 million judgment plus interest that adds to $112,000 each day against Trump and his business still stands. So yeah, he's still going to have to pay unless they are successful in the appeal courts. But let's turn this off. You know something, folks? They're most likely going to be. They're going to be successful. Look at just what happened right here, okay? Donald Trump, quite possibly for the first time, was going to actually have to be held accountable. And, he's in all kinds of legal trouble for the last couple years. He actually hasn't paid anything. He hasn't paid any money. He hasn't gone to jail for anything. The E. Jean Carroll case, he lost that. He hasn't given her any money yet either. He's appealing that. And for the first time, he was going to have to be held accountable for something. And just before it happened, the establishment jumped in. The courts. They jumped in and they protected him. Why? Why? Because he doesn't have the money. Well, you know something? All around the country, these types of judgments happen to people every day. Every day, there's people that get excessive judgments and they don't have the money. And you know what they do? They put their houses up for collateral. They put their cars up for collateral. They empty their life savings. They borrow money from friends and family. That's what normal people have to do when they get in trouble with the law. They have to basically exhaust their resources. Oftentimes, someone will end up being innocent, for example, but you have to hire a lawyer, and lawyers are super duper expensive. And you may even win, whatever it is, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case or whatever. You may even win, and you still end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to a lawyer that you just can't afford. Donald Trump is a goddamn billionaire. Supposedly. He owns buildings and skyscrapers and golf courses and all this shit. And they just did him a solid. Said, nope, you don't have to pay. Nope, there you go, you're fine. Okay, we're just going to suspend this whole thing. We're going to take away, basically cut the judgment in fucking half. Why? Because he's rich? Because he's an ex-president? I mean, most likely a combination of all of that. And this is what's really just kind of shows that there's two Americas out there. There's the America that all of us live in, ordinary people, and then there's the America that super duper rich people live in, where they could get to do whatever the fuck they want, and even when they break the law, they're not held accountable for it. If any of you people out there were hoping that Donald Trump was going to go to prison, and that way you didn't have to worry about him becoming president again, I got news for you, all right? He's not going to be held accountable. He's not going to prison. This is something that genuinely, especially among Democrats, people who are voting against Donald Trump because they want to stop fascism, that kind of thing, there's a big perception in these groups that Donald Trump, by this point, when the election comes, is going to be running from a jail cell. And it's like, you guys are on crack. That's not going to happen. He still has all of these different court cases coming, right? He's got the hush money thing coming next week. That's the thing from Stormy Daniels. That's the thing that basically where Michael Cohen went to prison. He's not going to jail for that. Do you think that's going to put him in jail? What? His lawyer paid somebody off and then he lied about it? Good fucking luck. He's not going to prison for that. The classified documents thing, it's got the judge in his pocket over that, Eileen Cannon. All right, election interference that case is most likely not going to happen before the election, so forget it. And then the Fulton County thing, that's the thing in Georgia, right? They go, oh, well, he can't pardon himself for that or whatever, right? That's a state case. even if he becomes president. Do you think he's going to go to jail for that? You know, some of those charges in that, like 6 of the 41 counts for that's what he was charged. He was charged with 41 counts during that. 6 of those counts were already dismissed. So he's already knocking them out, right? Well, 6 of them are dismissed this time, and then another 6 will be dismissed next time, and so on and so forth. I guarantee you he ends up getting a fine. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen in all of these cases. He's going to get off either on a technicality, or he's just going to get off with a fine when he should be in prison. All it's going to take is for one of those jurors to be one of his fans, a Trump voter, right? Someone who's drinking the Trump fucking Kool-Aid, to lie and then get on the jury there, and then guess what? Trump walks. Then it gets to be a hung jury, and Trump is going to get off scot-free. That's what's going to happen, folks. He's not going to go to prison. I don't count on it, because he won't, because we don't send rich people to prison in this country, especially rich politicians. No. Politicians do not go to prison, okay? Ex-presidents do not go to prison in the United States. They get away with everything they fucking want. And whether you look at it both ways, Republican, Democrat, there's been plenty of Democrats who have done bad things that they should have been held accountable for. And they don't get held accountable either. Barack Obama basically executed an American citizen, right, via drone strike. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Did anything happen to him? Was there any kind of accountability for that at all? No. George W. Bush started a goddamn war, 2 of them, at the same time with no evidence. Just basically started a war because he felt like it, because he wanted to make money for Dick Cheney. Did anything happen to him? Did he get held accountable in any way? No. All right? They will not do anything to him. We don't do that in the United States. We don't hold our politicians accountable, especially ex-presidents. He's not going to jail. You know how he'll go to jail? If he loses the election. All right? Do you people out there, do you want to stop this man from becoming president and taking over the goddamn country and flushing this country down the fucking toilet and turning it into his own personal piggy bank so that he can walk around like the next fucking Mussolini? If you want to stop that from happening, you better get your ass out there and vote. Okay, that's the only way we're going to stop him. Get out there and vote. And I know there's plenty of people out there who don't want to vote for him because whatever, Joe Biden, blah, blah, blah. Right? Okay, Joe Biden is supporting Israel. All right. Yes, I understand that. Okay? But these are the choices we have. And, sometimes there isn't a good choice. So if you allow this fucking this criminal to become the president in this country, you got nobody but yourself to blame. You're going to be sitting here by the middle of next year seeing fucking like Christian nationalists and shit as they pass one fucking incredibly ridiculous authoritarian law after another, while Donald Trump is like throwing people's children in prison like he did before. They're gonna do it again, and you'll have nobody but yourself to blame because you were too fucking I don't know what, too privileged, I guess, to stop it from happening. For fuck's sake, folks, please get the fuck out there and vote, because it's not going to stop. The law is not going to stop them. The United States is made for people like Donald Trump to prosper. We're the only people that can stop it. And the only way we're going to stop it is by getting the fuck out there, getting active, and fucking voting. So, anyway, folks, the world is fucked up. Adios.
Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.